So here's the big question. What happens when we multiply two negative numbers? We know that positive 5 times negative 3 works out to be negative 15. So the question is, if we multiply negative 5 times negative 3, should the answer work out to be negative 15 or positive 15? Here's how we're going to decide that. What happens if we add 5 times negative 3 plus negative 5 times negative 3? This seems like an odd question, right? But depending on which one of these, this ought to work out to. If negative 5 times negative 3 ought to be negative 15, then this sum is just negative 15 plus another negative 15, which is same sign, so this is negative. 15 plus 15 is 30. On the other hand, if negative 5 times negative 3 ought to be positive 15, then this sum is negative 15 plus positive 15, which is opposite signs, so I want subtraction, thinking 15 minus 15 is 0. So this is just 0. There is no negative 0. 0 is right in the middle. There's only one number labeled with 0. Okay, but without knowing what this is, how can I work out what this whole thing is? Well, remember we had those handy properties of multiplication. And one of them said this. If I take 5 times negative 3 plus negative 5 times negative 3, I'm multiplying these two numbers by the same thing and then adding together the results. That's the same as adding these two numbers together and then multiplying the result by this common number. Do you remember what that was called? That was called the distributive property. Usually we think about the distributive property going this way, but equal signs work both ways. Well, okay, but now let's do this arithmetic in the parentheses. 5 plus negative 5. Opposite signs, so we want subtraction. This sum in the parentheses works out to be 0. And 0 times anything is still 0. So it turns out that positive 5 times 3 plus negative 5 times 3 must be 0 if multiplication is going to keep working like it always has. Which means we have to have negative 5 times negative 3 be positive 15. Now, 5 and 3 are not magic in this argument, right? We could do this for any negative number times any other negative number, which leads us to a general rule. To multiply two negative numbers, first we multiply their absolute values, and the product is positive, or 0. So if, for example, we want to multiply negative 18 times negative 2/3, well, the answer is going to be positive because this is negative times negative. 18 times 2/3. That'll be, working this out off to the side, 18 over 1 times 2/3. That's 18 times 2 over 3. I see a common factor here because 3 goes into 18. That'll be 6 times 3 times 2. 3's cancel. We're left with 6 times 2 over 1. So 12 wholes, which is just 12. My result is positive 12. Let me give you one of these to try. Multiply negative 1.5 times negative 0.03. Pause the video and try this now. So we have a negative times a negative, which is positive. 1.5 times 0.03. Ignore the decimal points and multiply. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 is 4. We want 1, 2, 3 digits to the right of the decimal point. Oh, I think I'll need some extra zeros. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So 0.045. And again, positive. Before we move on, let's have a quick summary of what happens when we multiply two signed numbers. Well, the good news is, unlike addition, there's no complicated choices to make. The operation we want is always multiplication. And also unlike addition, we can decide the sign of the answer based only on the sign of the two numbers that we're multiplying. Of course, if we're multiplying a positive number by another positive number, the answer will be a positive number. If we're multiplying a negative number by a positive number, the product will be a negative number. If we're multiplying a positive number by a negative number, the product will be a negative number. And then, as we just saw, if we multiply a negative number by a negative number, the product will be a positive number. Some people like to remember this as if we multiply two numbers with the same sign, the result is positive. And if we multiply with opposite signs, the result is negative. If you prefer to remember this way, that's fine. But remember very carefully that this is a rule for multiplication, and multiplication and addition are different.